Chosen one, listen closely. Heaven pauses right now to speak directly to your heart. The noise around you has been deafening, the tension within unbearable. And yet, in the unseen realm, there is a stillness forming. You have been fighting a battle that no one else sees, a war not with swords or voices, but with thoughts, your own thoughts. They rise in the quiet moments, whispering fears, questions, and half-truths until you begin to wonder whether peace is even possible. But tonight, heaven declares that the war in your mind is about to shift. You have been chosen for clarity. That is why confusion hunts you. You have been marked for peace. That is why worry pursues you like a shadow. You are not losing your mind. Chosen one, you are being called to renew it. The enemy knows that if he conquers your thoughts, he can weaken your faith. That is why every small doubt, every memory of failure, every anxious projection of the future feels so intense. Yet, even now, the Spirit is whispering through the noise, reminding you that victory begins the moment you choose to believe that peace is not earned, it is given. Heaven watches as you wrestle between what you see and what you know. You replay moments in your head, wondering if you said too much, if you should have done more, if you could have changed the outcome. But what if the battle isn't about what happened, it's about who you're becoming? You were never meant to be imprisoned by overthinking. You were meant to be transformed by renewing. The crown of victory over anxiety does not rest on the strongest head, but on the surrendered one. Right now, the voice of truth is calling your name. The Spirit of God does not accuse, He aligns. He does not torment, He transforms. You have mistaken spiritual warfare for personal weakness. But the unrest within you is proof that heaven is trying to deliver you from the grip of mental chaos. Do not fear the trembling. It is the sound of chains loosening. Chosen one, you must stop running to the same thoughts that broke you. Stop rehearsing the pain. Stop nursing the wounds that God is trying to heal. This moment, yes, this one right now is your divine interruption. Heaven has orchestrated this encounter not through accident, not through the algorithm, but through design. The Word of God declares in the book of Philippians, chapter 4, verse 6, "Do not be anxious, but in everything pray, petition, give thanks, and present your requests to God." This is not a gentle suggestion, it is a divine strategy. Prayer is not the escape from your thoughts, it is the realignment of them. When you bring your worries before God, they lose their authority. Anxiety cannot thrive where gratitude lives. The moment you begin to thank Him, even for what you do not yet see, heaven begins to shift the atmosphere inside your mind. You are being invited to let go of control. Worry is a false prophecy. It imagines a future without God in it. But prayer is heaven's language breaking through your anxiety. When you pray, you are not performing, you are positioning. Every time you open your mouth and say, "Father, I trust you," darkness loses ground. You cannot fight spiritual battles with mental logic. You fight them by faith. Take a deep breath. This moment is sacred. The fear that once seemed louder than your hope is beginning to quiet. The thoughts that once mocked you now lose their authority because you are remembering who walks beside you. You are not abandoned in this war. The commander of heaven's armies stands within your mind, guarding, guiding, and granting you peace that surpasses understanding. Now lift your head, Chosen one, you are not weak for feeling weary. You are human, but filled with divine strength. The same Spirit that raised Christ from the dead dwells within you. And that means the same power that calmed the sea can calm your thoughts. Speak this aloud: peace. Be still. Let heaven hear your agreement. If this message reaches your heart, if something inside you recognizes that this is your confirmation, then act on it. Do not scroll past your moment of freedom. Like this message to declare your faith. Share it so another chosen one can find their way back to peace. Leave a comment below as your testimony that you refuse to be ruled by fear any longer. And subscribe, because this is not the end of your story. It is the beginning of your restoration. You are not what your worries say you are. You are who God says you are: strong, steady, sound in mind, and chosen for victory. Comment 777 below as a prophetic sign that you choose peace over panic, faith over fear, and destiny over distraction. Chosen one, now that your spirit has been awakened to the war within, it is time to unmask the enemy that hides behind your own thoughts. The most dangerous voice is not always the loudest. It is often the one that sounds most familiar. The voice of doubt does not always shout. It whispers softly in your reasoning, disguising itself as caution, as common sense, as the need to protect yourself from disappointment. Yet heaven wants you to see that doubt is not wisdom, it is warfare. You have carried questions that were not meant to stay unanswered, but the enemy twisted them into anchors, pulling you deeper into uncertainty. You have told yourself, maybe I'm not good enough. Maybe I heard God wrong. Maybe this peace I seek is not real. But the truth is, those words are not yours. They are echoes of a serpent that has learned the tone of your own mind. The enemy has studied your fears like a scholar studies scripture, quoting them back to you until they sound true. Doubt first enters not as rebellion but as reasoning. It makes you analyze what should be trusted, debate what should be believed, and postpone obedience until you feel certain. But faith was never about feeling, it was about knowing. Faith begins where sight ends. The battle you are facing now is not between you and your failures. It is between you and the fear that says, "What if it happens again?" heaven whispers. "What if it doesn't?" The voice of doubt always tries to distort the character of God. It says, "If God loved you, this wouldn't have happened." It tries to convince you that pain equals punishment. But the Spirit wants you to see that every storm that shook you was a lesson shaping you. Even when it hurt, heaven was near. Every unanswered question has been an invitation for deeper trust. As the Apostle reminds us in his letter to the Corinthians, chapter 10, verse 5, we demolish arguments and every pretension against the knowledge of God, and take captive every thought to obey Christ. That is your divine authority. Chosen one, you are not a victim of your mind, you are the gatekeeper of it. You have the power to decide which thoughts are allowed to stay. Every lie that tells you you're not enough must bow to the truth that says you are chosen, appointed, and equipped. You do not need to silence every thought, only to submit them. Bring each one before Christ like a captive, not to punish it, but to purify your perception. Understand this: the voice of doubt always tries to predict your failure before faith can prove your victory. It tries to make you believe that your past disqualifies your future. But in heaven's court, your history is not your identity, it's your testimony. God does not waste anything. not even the mistakes that shame tried to use against you. Every wound that once whispered defeat will one day become the reason someone else finds hope. The battlefield of the mind is sacred territory. It's where the unseen becomes seen, where thoughts become choices, and choices become destiny. You must protect it as fiercely as you protect your heart. When doubt tries to argue, don't engage, declare. The moment you begin to speak truth aloud, the enemy loses his disguise. That is why he wants you silent. He fears your voice, because your voice carries agreement, and agreement builds reality. You are not called to debate with darkness. You are called to command it to leave. You are not called to overthink. You are called to overcome. Every anxious thought, every fearful imagination is a counterfeit prophecy, predicting a future God never wrote for you. Reject it. When your mind says, "You'll never get through this," reply with truth. The one who began a good work in me will finish it. Chosen one. Your mind is not broken, it is under renovation. Every day, heaven rebuilds your thoughts into the architecture of peace. Doubt may knock, but it cannot enter a house filled with faith. There will still be moments when the voice of fear sneaks back in, pretending to be you. But now, you will recognize it. You will not bow to it again. Lift your eyes for a moment. Imagine what your life would look like if you stopped believing the voice that always predicts your downfall. Imagine the silence of doubt replaced with the sound of faith, steady, unshaken, sure. That is what heaven offers you tonight, not the absence of battle, but the awareness of victory. The next time that inner voice begins to speak in fear, pause. Do not argue. Remember, you are not defined by the voice that doubts you. You are defined by the voice that called you before you even knew his name. The war in your mind is shifting. You are learning to separate the lies that sound like logic from the truth that sets you free. The same spirit that hovered over chaos in the beginning now hovers over your thoughts, speaking order where confusion lived. And as you surrender each doubt, you will hear it faint at first, then clear peace, like a whisper from heaven, saying, "You are mine, chosen one." Now that the mask of doubt has fallen, heaven draws your eyes deeper to the very root of what feeds it, worry. You must understand this truth. Worry is not random. It begins as a seed, a single thought planted in the soil of uncertainty. At first, it seems harmless, a passing concern, a small what if, a quiet fear of the unknown. But if left unguarded, that seed grows roots. It wraps around your peace, choking out joy until you cannot tell the difference between caution and captivity. Every sleepless night, every anxious heartbeat, every time you replay conversations or wonder about outcomes that haven't yet come to pass, that is not just how you are. That is evidence of a seed taking root. The enemy does not need to destroy your life if he can distract your mind. If he can keep you worrying, he can keep you from worshiping. Worry drains faith of its focus. It keeps you stuck in cycles of almost free, but never quite walking in victory. You must trace the seed of worry back to its moment of planting. Was it when someone betrayed you, when a prayer seemed unanswered, when life didn't unfold the way you thought it would? Worry is born when faith feels delayed. But heaven wants you to see that delay is not denial, it is divine design. The time between your prayer and its fulfillment is not punishment, it's preparation. According to what is revealed in the book of Matthew, Chapter 6, verse 27. Can any one of you by worrying add a single hour to your life, chosen one? You have been watering the wrong seed. Each time you dwell on what could go wrong, you are feeding fear. But every time you thank God for what could go right, you are feeding faith. The soil of your mind will grow whatever you plant most often. What you repeat, you reinforce. So today, decide what will grow, fear or faith. The seed of anxiety whispers that control equals safety. It convinces you that if you just plan harder, think longer, or fix more, the pain will stay away. But control is a counterfeit of trust. It promises peace, but delivers exhaustion. The more you try to manage everything, the less room you leave for God to move. Let go. Not because you've given up, but because you finally understand that your hands are not large enough to hold the universe, but His are. Remember, worry always starts small. It disguises itself as responsibility, then matures into fear. It begins as a single thought, what if, and becomes a lifestyle of doubt. The cure is not pretending the fear isn't real, it's choosing not to water it. Every time anxiety rises, respond with gratitude. Say, Lord, thank you that you're already in tomorrow. Gratitude is the axe that cuts worry at its root. You may feel that your mind has been overrun with these weeds for too long, that it's too late to reclaim peace. But no, chosen one, Heaven says it's never too late to replant. A single prayer of surrender can uproot what years of fear have planted. The moment you speak truth over yourself, the ground begins to heal. Your thoughts start to bloom differently, less like storms, more like still waters. You are not designed to live in constant alarm. You were built for serenity, anchored in divine trust. Worry wants to make you forget who your provider is. But you must remember, God has already seen what's ahead. He has gone before you. The answer exists before the question is even formed. So, breathe. Loosen your grip. The Father is not asking you to figure everything out. He is asking you to trust Him with what you can't control. Let His peace plant itself where worry once grew. And when those anxious thoughts try to sprout again, speak to them with authority. You have no place here. My mind belongs to God. Now, take this moment to act prophetically, not with fear, but with faith. Write these words as your declaration. Short yet powerful. Comment, I release it. Write it not as a phrase, but as a vow. With every letter, you are handing God what has been weighing you down, the unanswered questions, the tension in your chest, the fears that wake you in the night. Let that comment be more than words. Let it be a symbol of surrender. When you say, I release it, heaven hears. I trust you. The seed of worry will no longer grow in your garden. From this day forward, the soil of your thoughts will bear the fruit of peace, and every time you are tempted to worry, you will remember this moment, the night you stopped feeding fear and started watering faith. Chosen one, heaven now invites you to remember who you are, not what the world has called you, not what failure has whispered, but who God declared you to be before you took your first breath. The storms in your mind have been fierce, but it is time to stand tall again in your divine authority. You are not here to merely survive thoughts of defeat. You are here to rule over them. The battles of the mind are not fought with physical strength, nor are they conquered by self-help alone. They are won through remembrance, remembering what heaven has already given you. Many have tried to fight fear with courage or reason, yet fear cannot be reasoned with. It must be replaced by truth. The truth is that the power you seek has already been placed within you. The authority to command peace, to silence chaos, to cast down torment, it is yours because He lives in you. For too long, you have treated anxiety as something you must manage. When heaven says you are meant to master it, you do not fight for victory, you fight from victory. The cross was not only a rescue, it was a transfer of authority. Everything that once overpowered you must now answer to the Spirit within you. The enemy fears a mind that knows its authority. That is why he works tirelessly to convince you that you are powerless, unworthy, and unqualified. But he trembles at the moment you remember who walks with you. The authority of heaven is not a distant power, it is a living presence inside you. The Spirit that hovered over the waters of creation now hovers within your thoughts, waiting for your agreement to speak light into darkness. It was proclaimed in the second letter to Timothy, chapter 1, verse 7, "For God has not given us a spirit of fear, but of power, of love, and of a sound mind." Let those words settle deep within you. They are not simply verses to recite, they are your identity defined. Power, love, and a sound mind are not distant goals, they are your divine inheritance. You have the power to overcome, the love to endure, and the soundness of mind to discern truth from deception. Fear is not a personality trait, it is a foreign spirit. And you, chosen one, have heaven's permission to evict it. Look back for a moment, not with regret, but revelation. Every time fear rose against you, it revealed what you carried. The enemy never attacks emptiness, he attacks evidence. He saw your strength before you did. He knew that if you ever discovered the authority within you, you would no longer be manageable. That's why the warfare in your mind has been so relentless. It's not proof of weakness, but of value. Authority is not loud, it is rooted. It doesn't shout to prove control, it speaks calmly, and darkness obeys. When Jesus calmed the storm, he didn't scream, he spoke a single command: peace, be still. That same voice speaks through you. The calm you seek around you must first be established within you. You can walk through the same storm that once terrified you and remain unshaken, because peace has become your position, not your pursuit. Chosen one, authority begins in alignment. When your thoughts align with heaven's truth, your words carry heaven's weight. This is why you must guard your speech. Your tongue can either build fortresses of faith or prisons of fear. Speak life over your mind. Say what heaven says about you. I am sound. I am loved. I am powerful. You are not declaring hope, you are enforcing truth. The moment you begin to speak with authority, heaven responds. Angels move where faith is spoken. You do not need to beg for what God has already promised. You need to believe it enough to declare it. Authority without awareness lies dormant. But once you recognize it, it becomes unstoppable. When fear whispers that you cannot, remember, it is written that you can do all things through Christ who strengthens you. When the voice of doubt questions your worth, answer it with truth. You are the workmanship of God, created for good works, designed for victory, equipped for this very hour. There will be days when your mind tries to pull you back into old patterns, In those moments, pause and remember, fear does not belong to you. It was never assigned to your spirit. You were born to walk with courage, to think with clarity, to love with boldness, and to lead with peace. You are not a victim of your emotions. You are a vessel of divine power. Chosen one. You are heaven's reminder to darkness that authority still exists on earth. You carry the same spirit that raised Jesus from the dead, and that spirit is not anxious. It is not afraid. It is not confused. It is victorious, steady, and sure. And now, so are you. Walk today with your shoulders lifted, not in pride, but in remembrance. The authority you carry is not arrogance, it is alignment. It is the quiet knowing that the battle in your mind has already been won, and your role is simply to walk in that truth. You have been armed, anointed, and appointed. Step forward in peace. Speak with power, and think with clarity. Chosen one. There comes a moment in every warrior's journey when silence is no longer enough, when the heart must speak, when faith must find its voice. You have stood quietly in your storm long enough. Now, heaven urges you to speak back to the storm, not with fear, not with trembling, but with the authority and confidence of one who knows the winds. Obey the one who sent you. Your thoughts have been loud lately, haven't they? The waves have been high, tossing you from peace to panic and back again. But hear this, storms do not come to drown you, they come to reveal what was asleep inside you. You are not weak because the waves rose higher. You are strong because, even trembling, you still reach for God. Faith is not the absence of fear, it is the decision to speak truth louder than fear. Every storm responds to sound. That is why you must open your mouth and declare peace over your own mind. The same God who formed the seas gave you the power to tell them, "Be still." Your voice is not small when it echoes heaven's authority. As Jesus himself declared in the Gospel of Mark, chapter 4, verse 39, he got up, rebuked the wind and said to the waves, "Quiet, be still." Then the wind died down and it was completely calm. That same divine command lives in your mouth. The storm in your mind may roar, but it cannot ignore the voice of faith. The key is not to match the volume of fear, but to speak from the depth of conviction. Even whispers, when rooted in belief, can shift the spiritual atmosphere. When you speak life into the chaos, you realign heaven and earth within you. Each word of faith becomes a stone that builds your inner altar, a reminder that you and God have met in the middle of your storm and turned fear into worship. Picture this: your life is a lighthouse standing on a cliff. Every storm that tries to extinguish your light only proves how needed that light is. Ships, the hearts of others, are guided by the steady glow you carry. When you speak peace, you don't just calm your own sea, you help someone else survive theirs. And yet, lighthouses need maintenance. They need oil to keep the flame burning. In the same way, this ministry, this message, this sanctuary of words, you return to it, too, runs on oil, the oil of support, of love, of shared faith. If these words have become light for your darkness, consider tending that flame. Like, share, and subscribe, not out of routine, but as an act of agreement. Every click is a signal flare, telling heaven, this truth still matters. When you share this message, you become part of its ministry. You're not just forwarding a video, you're passing a torch. Somewhere, someone scrolling in silence is on the edge of giving up. And your simple act of sharing becomes the bridge between their despair and God's reminder. And if your heart feels stirred to go deeper, to give back in a way that sustains the light that sustains you, know this: every seed sown here helps carry truth further. Donations are not transactions, they are declarations. They say, "I believe this light must keep shining." Think of it as adding oil to the lamp that has guided you. When many hands pour together, the flame does not fade, it expands. You are part of something greater than an online moment. You are part of a divine echo, a chain reaction of faith awakening across the world. When you choose to support, you are not just fueling a channel, you are fueling a calling. You are saying, "Let there be light," not just for yourself, but for generations who will need this same reminder. Chosen one, storms will still come, but each time they do, remember what you've learned here. Your voice carries power. You are not the passenger in this storm, you are the captain under divine command. You may not control the wind, but you can command your reaction. You can speak calm where fear speaks chaos. Tonight, as you rest, imagine that storm one last time. See the waves still crashing, the sky still grey. And then, see yourself standing on the deck, eyes lifted, voice steady. You speak not shouting, but sure, peace. Be still. The wind slows, the waters soften, and there, in the silence that follows, you realize the storm was never meant to destroy you. It was sent to reveal that peace was inside you all along. So keep your light burning. Beloved, keep your voice lifted. Keep your heart open to the flow of what heaven is doing through you and around you. Speak faith. Sow kindness. Share light, and when you can, pour oil into this flame so that others may find their way home through your reflection. Chosen one, now that your voice has learned to command peace, heaven invites you into something deeper, a sacred rhythm called alignment. The battles of the mind are not just fought through strength or speech, but through surrender. Prayer is not merely words spoken to the sky. It is heaven's breath entering human chaos. And when you pray with alignment, your words don't just rise upward, they echo back as transformation. For so long, you have tried to make sense of everything, to organize the noise, to fix what broke, to heal what hurt. But alignment begins where control ends. The moment you stop trying to manage God and start trusting Him, your mind begins to heal. Prayer, in its purest form, is not asking, it is aligning. You are not bending heaven to your will, you are bending your will to heaven's rhythm. There are prayers that come from desperation, and there are prayers that come from revelation. The first one pleads. The second one commands peace. The first says, "Lord, get me out of this storm." The second says, "Lord, let me see you in this storm." You are being invited into that second kind of prayer, one that does not run from the battle, but reigns within it. As Jesus himself declared in the Gospel of John, chapter 15, verse 7, "If you remain in me, and my words remain in you, ask whatever you wish, and it will be done for you." The prayer of alignment begins when you choose to believe that heaven already knows your need before you speak it. You don't pray to inform God, you pray to transform yourself. Every time you pray with faith, You rewire your thoughts. You remind your soul that it is safe in divine hands, even when the situation has not changed yet. Your perspective shifts. You stop reacting to fear and start responding to faith. Close your eyes for a moment and imagine your mind as a river, restless and overflowing. Every anxious thought is a wave colliding with another. But when you begin to pray, heaven speaks softly at first, and the current starts to slow. The waters begin to clear, and reflection replaces reaction. That is what alignment looks like, not the absence of motion, but the presence of order. Prayer does not have to be complicated. It can be as simple as breathing in His name, exhaling your fear. Jesus. Inhale, peace enters. I trust you. Exhale, worry leaves. Sometimes, the most powerful prayer is silence soaked in surrender. The Holy Spirit interprets the sighs that words cannot carry. You may wonder, what if I've prayed for years and nothing has changed, but heaven whispers back, something has changed you. The miracle often begins in the unseen. Alignment transforms before circumstances conform. The moment you begin to agree with heaven's timing, you find freedom from the urgency of your own. Your mind becomes still, not because life becomes easy, but because you've remembered who's steering the ship. Prayer is the anchor that holds when storms roar loudest. When your thoughts spin out of control, drop that anchor. Whisper His name, not as a question, but as a statement of belonging. I am yours, chosen one. Every time you align yourself through prayer, you are not losing control, you are regaining clarity. Heaven begins to breathe through you, shaping your words into weapons of light. The darkness in your mind cannot argue with a heart that has fully surrendered. Do not measure prayer by its length or its eloquence. Measure it by its alignment. When you pray from peace, you carry more power than 1,000 anxious words. The prayer of alignment is not performance, it is posture. It's the stillness that says, God, I don't understand, but I trust you anyway. Right now, heaven leans close. The Spirit listens, not for perfection, but for sincerity. The whisper of faith carries farther than the roar of fear. Let your prayer tonight be simple, pure, and personal. Let it realign your thoughts with truth, your heart with hope, your soul with peace. And when you finish praying, mark this moment. Declare to heaven that you are ready to release control, to walk in divine order, to let peace become your guide. Do this prophetic act not for me, but for your own soul. Type this number as your covenant with clarity. Comment 555 below. Write it as a symbol that you are stepping into divine alignment, that you choose to stop fighting for control and start flowing in trust. Let that number remind you grace, change, and transformation are already at work within you. The battle in your mind does not end in noise, it ends in stillness. The prayer of alignment will not just quiet your thoughts, it will crown them with peace. Chosen one, even as your heart begins to align and your spirit learns to breathe again, there is still a shadow that creeps in when the light fades fear. It lingers at the edge of your peace, whispering, what if it all falls apart again? But heaven speaks louder. Tonight you are not bound to repeat your pain. The cycle of fear is breaking. Fear feeds on focus. The more you look at it, the stronger it seems. It draws its energy from your attention, thriving on every what if you entertain. That is why the battlefield of your mind has never been about what you feel, it's about what you fix your eyes on. When you fix your focus on fear, it multiplies. When you fix it on faith, fear starves. You see, fear is not the absence of faith, it is misplaced faith. It's believing more in what could go wrong than in what God has already promised will go right. Fear is faith in the wrong direction. It believes the lies of the enemy more than the truth of heaven. But tonight, you will take that belief back. We are reminded through the writings of David in the Psalms. Chapter 27, verse 1, "The Lord is my light and my salvation, whom shall I fear? The Lord is the stronghold of my life, of whom shall I be afraid?" Let that truth sink into the corners of your heart that still tremble. Fear cannot survive in the light of remembrance. When you remember who your defender is, your fear begins to shrink into perspective. Every thought that tells you you're alone fades when you realize you've never taken a step without his shadow beside yours. Fear disguises itself well. Sometimes it calls itself logic, sometimes caution, sometimes humility. But make no mistake, fear always seeks to stop movement. It freezes progress and convinces you that stillness equals safety. Yet heaven's kind of stillness is different. God's stillness strengthens, fear's stillness paralyzes. You were not made to hide. You were made to walk forward even when your knees shake. The cycle of fear often begins with one thought, small, quiet, believable. What if this doesn't work? What if I fail again? And when you entertain it, it multiplies, wrapping around your heart like vines until you mistake the weight of fear for your identity. But fear has no roots in truth. It cannot survive long in the presence of light. Tonight, you will learn to starve it. When fear begins to speak, do not argue with it, worship through it. Fear cannot feed on worship. The moment you begin to praise, even silently, fear loses its appetite. The sound of faith is poison to panic. Your worship becomes the echo that drives fear from the corners of your mind. The enemy has tried to make you believe that fear is your flaw. But heaven says it is your invitation. Each time fear rises, it becomes the very proof that faith is ready to grow. You do not conquer fear by never feeling it. You conquer fear by facing it and walking anyway. Courage is not the absence of trembling, it is obedience despite it. Look back at the moments when you thought you would break. You didn't. You're still here, reading these words, breathing through battles that once made you cry out for rescue. That means fear didn't win, and it never will. Because faith always leaves a footprint where fear tried to block the path. Chosen one, you must begin to replace the vocabulary of fear. Stop saying, "What if I fail?" and start saying, "What if I fly?" Stop saying, "I can't handle this," and start declaring, "God is handling this through me." Words create worlds. Speak faith until your feelings follow. Your freedom is not waiting in some distant future, it is forming right now. Inside every moment, you choose to focus on truth instead of terror. You are not a hostage to worry. You are a child of the King. Fear does not run your mind, you do. Under divine command. When fear knocks again, and it will answer not with arguments but with remembrance, "The Lord is my light." Speak it aloud if you must. Write it down if you forget. Let it become your heartbeat. For the light that lives in you is brighter than the darkness that threatens you. And one day soon, when you walk through what once terrified you, you'll realize something profound. Fear was never your enemy, it was your teacher. It showed you where your trust still needed to grow. It revealed where you still tried to do alone what was meant to be done together with him. The cycle of fear ends when faith becomes your focus. You are not running anymore. You are standing anchored, aligned, unafraid. Heaven's peace does not promise the absence of storms, but it guarantees this: no wave can swallow the one who walks with the light. Chosen one. Now that fear's voice has begun to fade, the true work begins: the steady renewal of the mind. This is not a momentary victory, it is a lifelong rhythm, a sacred discipline that must be tended like a garden. Renewal is not a one-time event, it is a daily awakening. You are not simply trying to forget the old thoughts, you are building new ones, brick by brick, truth by truth, until the architecture of heaven fills your inner world. Your mind is holy ground. Every thought that passes through it is either a seed of life or a shadow of decay. The Spirit is inviting you to cultivate that ground with care, to stop letting every stray idea take root as truth. You must learn to filter thoughts the way a gatekeeper guards a city. Not everything that knocks deserves entry. Some thoughts may sound familiar, even comforting in their chaos. But familiarity does not mean belonging. As was spoken in the sacred texts of old, in the book of Romans, chapter 12, verse 2, "Do not conform to the pattern of this world, but be transformed by the renewing of your mind. Then you will be able to test and approve what God's will is, his good, pleasing, and perfect will." This is not just instruction, it is invitation. Transformation is not something God demands of you, it is something he offers to do with you. But renewal requires participation. You cannot expect peace to live in a mind still entertained by chaos, the patterns of the world, comparison, pride, fear. Control must be replaced by heaven's patterns of trust, gratitude, humility, and rest. Renewal happens in quiet spaces. It happens in moments when you catch yourself mid-thought and choose differently. When the old fear whispers, "You always fail," and you reply, "But grace always lifts me." That's renewal. When your mind tries to replay regret, and you decide to thank God for the lesson instead, that's renewal. You are not just resisting darkness, you are rewiring destiny. Many people want change, but resist process. Yet, renewal is a process. It's gentle, deliberate, and often invisible at first. The world moves fast, but heaven renews slowly, deeply, thoroughly. God is not after temporary relief, he is after permanent transformation. He is not rushing you, he is rebuilding you. Think of your mind as a river that has been running wild for years. Worry, trauma, and noise have carved deep channels. Renewal is like the slow redirection of that water. The Spirit begins to build new pathways, truth replacing lies, hope replacing fear, and though it may take time, the new course always leads toward peace. Chosen one. Renewal requires surrender, but it also requires responsibility. You must become intentional about what you feed your thoughts. Guard your gates, what you read, watch, and listen to. Every word you absorb is either medicine or poison to your mind. You cannot fill your soul with the world's noise and expect heaven's silence to reign. It's time to curate your inner environment. Start your mornings with gratitude instead of scrolling. End your nights with prayer instead of panic. Speak affirmations drawn from truth instead of fear. Let your habits become holy. When you choose what to think on, you are choosing what kind of life you will live. And when the old thoughts return, and they will meet them with compassion, not condemnation. Renewal is not about perfection, it's about persistence. When a weed grows in your garden, you don't burn the whole field, you pull it up. So when anxiety resurfaces, don't shame yourself. Simply return to alignment. Say, "This thought does not serve my peace," and replace it with truth. There is a beauty in this process. Each day you renew your mind. You become more like the one who renews all things. You begin to see differently. What once provoked panic now invites patience. What once triggered fear now stirs faith. Renewal turns reaction into reflection. You will notice subtle shifts, peace lasting longer, worry dissolving faster, hope rising stronger. That is how heaven works. Quietly, consistently, until one day you wake up and realize you haven't felt the old fear in a long while. You've been walking in peace without even noticing. That is the fruit of a renewed mind, effortless stability. Chosen one, heaven is not asking you to erase every thought, but to elevate them. Bring your thinking higher beyond survival, into surrender, beyond logic, into love. The spirit within you is both counselor and craftsman, shaping every corner of your mind into something sacred. So, continue this work, patiently, daily, faithfully. Renewal is not punishment, it is promise. You are not being emptied, you are being refined. Each renewed thought is a brick in the temple of your transformation. And one day soon, when the war in your mind is only a memory, you will look back and realize this was never about becoming someone new. It was about remembering who you already were: chosen, whole, and free. Chosen one. Now that renewal has begun to take root, it is time to build protection, to clothe your thoughts in armor that cannot be pierced by doubt or despair. You have learned how to recognize the enemy, how to uproot fear, how to breathe through prayer. Now heaven calls you to guard what you've gained, because peace once found must be defended. The greatest battles are not fought on fields, but in minds. You can win the external fight and still lose the internal one if your thoughts remain unguarded. That is why divine armor is not optional, it is essential. You are not called to simply survive spiritual warfare. You are called to walk through it, clothed in light, so fully covered in truth that no dart of darkness can strike your soul. The Apostle reminds us in his letter to the Ephesians, chapter 6, verse 11, "Put on the full armor of God, so you can stand against the devil's schemes." That verse is more than a command, it is a strategy. The armor of God is not something you wear once, it's something you wake up and choose daily. Each piece: truth, righteousness, peace, faith, salvation, and the word guards a different part of you. The belt of truth keeps your identity secure. The breastplate of righteousness protects your heart. The shield of faith stops the fiery arrows of doubt before they reach your thoughts. The helmet of salvation, that one, chosen one, is especially for your mind. It is the divine covering that protects your reasoning from deception, your emotions from despair. Salvation is not just your rescue, it is your shield. When the enemy tries to replay every mistake, that helmet reminds you, I am forgiven, I am chosen, I am covered. The Word of God, your sword, is more than scripture, it's your declaration. You don't swing it with fear, you wield it with authority. When worry whispers lies, you strike back with truth. No weapon formed against me shall prosper. When discouragement says, you'll never change, you counter with, I can do all things through Christ who strengthens me. The Word is not a book to quote, it's a weapon to live. Chosen one, do you see now? The armor is not just protection, it is identity. Each piece reminds you who you are and who fights for you. When you walk clothed in divine truth, the enemy can attack, but he cannot infiltrate. Fear may knock, but it will find no open door. Still, you must remain aware. Spiritual warfare doesn't end when you feel peaceful, it ends when you stay prepared. The enemy waits for moments of distraction. That's why consistency matters. Prayer is your daily polish. Gratitude strengthens your armor. Worship keeps your shield lifted. Every act of obedience adds another layer of protection. Think of yourself as a fortress. Every time you choose peace instead of panic, you reinforce your walls. Every time you speak life instead of despair, you strengthen your gate. Every time you forgive instead of resent, you secure another stone in your foundation. That is what spiritual fortification looks like. Faith in motion, peace on purpose. And remember, you are not fighting alone. Heaven's armies surround you. Angels move at the sound of faith-filled words. You are never unguarded, you are never uncovered. Even in your silence, the armor still shines. Yet, you must wear it actively. Armor left hanging in the corner cannot protect. Truth unspoken cannot defend. Faith unexercised cannot block the arrows. You must engage daily. Choose faith when fear arises. Speak truth when doubt lingers. And carry peace wherever you go. That is how the battle is won long before it begins. The armor does not make you invincible, it makes you aligned. It keeps you close to the source of power, reminding you that your strength is not your own. You are not powerful because of who you are. You are powerful because of whose you are. And tonight, heaven invites you to make a declaration, a symbol of remembrance, a prophetic act to seal what has been spoken, not for others to see, but for your spirit to affirm. Let your fingers become your voice, and your words become a shield. Write this in the comments as a decree of protection. Short but mighty comment, I am covered. Write it not as a repetition, but as a revelation. When you type those words, imagine each letter as a layer of divine armor settling over your mind, your heart, your thoughts. You are declaring to heaven and to the unseen realm that your peace is protected, your mind is guarded, your faith is secured. Remember this, the armor is not heavy for the chosen, it fits perfectly because it was made for you. You were never meant to fight bare-handed. You were always meant to walk clothed in victory. And when the next battle comes, and it will, you will not tremble. You will stand, steady and shining, because you are covered in light that darkness cannot comprehend. Chosen one, now that your armor gleams with divine light, you can finally stand still and see clearly what heaven has been doing all along. For so long, your thoughts have been like a storm-tossed sea, chaotic, restless, uncertain, but now the clouds begin to part. Clarity dawns like the first sunrise after a long night. You begin to see that even the turbulence had purpose. Every crash of the waves was carving wisdom into you. Every unanswered prayer was preparing the soil for new growth. Heaven has not been silent, it has been strategic. What felt like confusion was calibration. You were being trained, not tormented. The winds that once terrified you are now your teachers, reminding you that peace is not found in the absence of noise, but in the presence of trust. When your mind is anchored in truth, even chaos begins to serve you. As heaven speaks through the prophet Isaiah, chapter 26, verse 3, "You will keep in perfect peace those whose minds are steadfast, because they trust in you." Perfect peace. Do you hear the promise in those words? Not partial, not temporary, but perfect. Peace that does not depend on circumstance. Peace that is rooted in trust. That is what God offers you tonight. A stillness that stays, even when the world trembles. Chosen one. Think of your life as a great ocean voyage. You began in shallow waters, where the shore was visible and safety felt near. But destiny called you deeper, into waves that seemed too high to handle. You thought you were losing direction, but heaven was adjusting your compass. The winds that seemed to push against you were actually steering you toward divine coordinates. And now, as you look back, you see how every gust served a purpose. The battles of your mind were not setbacks, they were shaping. Every doubt defeated became a plank in the ship that now carries you. You have learned to sail not by sight, but by faith. It is in this clarity that gratitude grows. Gratitude turns confusion into wisdom, pain into perspective, trials into testimonies. You begin to understand that even your tears were watering the seeds of peace you now harvest. Nothing was wasted. Every sleepless night became a prayer. Every storm became a sermon written by your survival. This is why these moments matter, not just for you, but for others walking through the same storms. Somewhere out there, another chosen one is searching for direction. Standing in the same fog you once knew, they need the light you now carry. That's why your engagement matters. When you like, you lift the message higher. When you share, you extend the lighthouse beam across oceans of algorithms and distractions. When you subscribe, you join a family of light bearers who refuse to let hope fade from this generation. And when you give, when you sow into this ministry with a donation, you are not funding noise, you are fueling healing. Think of every word you've heard here as a drop of oil for your lamp. When you give, you pour oil into lamps that burn in thousands of hearts across the world. Each small act of generosity becomes light multiplied, one flame igniting another, until the whole horizon glows with hope. This isn't about charity, it's about legacy. You're helping build a spiritual network of voices that speak peace into chaos, strength into weakness, purpose into confusion. Perhaps you've felt lately that your contribution is too small to matter, but even a single drop causes ripples. Even the smallest coin, placed with sincerity, becomes a seed that God multiplies in ways unseen. When you give out of gratitude, heaven always responds with abundance, not just in finances, but in freedom, peace, and clarity of purpose. This space, you are part of this movement of the chosen, is a living testimony of what happens when ordinary people believe together. When we share truth, we share transformation. Every message that has reached your heart was made possible by someone else's act of faith. And now, you have the chance to keep that circle of light unbroken. So, if this message has steadied your ship, if it has spoken calm into your storm, Consider joining hands in this work of light. Like, share, subscribe, and if led by the Spirit, give. Do it not as obligation, but as overflow. Let it be your way of saying, "This light changed me, and I want it to reach another soul, chosen one." Clarity has come. You no longer see yourself as broken, but as being rebuilt. You no longer view your past as punishment, but as preparation. Every scar is proof that God finished what fear started. And as you walk forward, now peaceful, steadfast, illuminated, remember this truth. Clarity is not the end of your journey. It is the beginning of your calling. Chosen one. Even in the light of clarity, there will come moments that test the depth of your peace, those quiet seasons when heaven seems still, when God's voice feels like an echo fading into the distance. These are the stretches of silence that make you question whether you've somehow wandered off course. You pray, but the answers don't arrive. You listen, but all you hear is stillness. It is in this silence that faith matures. Silence does not mean abandonment. In heaven's design, silence is often strategy. It is the pause before revelation, the stillness before the next command. When the teacher stops speaking, it means the test has begun. You are not forgotten, you are being refined. Every delay, every unanswered question, every moment of quiet is an invitation to trust what you've already been told. You see, faith is easy when the voice of God feels loud. But the real depth of faith is revealed when the voice grows faint and you still choose to follow. Heaven is not ignoring you. It is watching you apply what has already been taught. The silence is not punishment, it is permission. God trusts you enough to walk by what He's already said. The voice of God thundered in the book of Job, chapter 37, verse 5. God's voice thunders in marvelous ways. He does great things beyond our understanding. That is the mystery of silence, even when He seems quiet. He is still working, doing things beyond what your understanding can grasp. The same God who spoke galaxies into existence also speaks through stillness. His silence is not empty, it's echoing with purpose. Think of a seed buried beneath the soil. It is surrounded by darkness, cut off from sound, unseen and forgotten by those above. Yet in that silence, something miraculous is happening. Roots are forming, life is stirring, transformation is underway. That's what your silent seasons are. Chosen one, spiritual germination. The silence is not killing you, it's growing you. You've mistaken God's quiet for His absence. But the truth is that silence is His most intimate form of presence. It is the place where you stop hearing instructions and start learning trust. It's where your faith graduates from needing proof to becoming proof. There is beauty in that stillness if you allow your spirit to listen differently. The silence teaches discernment. You start to notice the gentle nudges, the whisper of peace that says, "Wait," the subtle conviction that redirects your steps. You begin to sense God in the spaces between words. It's there that you discover that communication with heaven was never about sound, it was about sensitivity. Many lose heart in silence because they mistake stillness for stagnation. They begin to think, maybe God has changed His mind about me. Or maybe I missed my moment. But the silence does not mean your story has stopped. It means your roots are deepening before new branches grow. The promise is still alive, just hidden for now. Chosen one. Silence reveals what noise conceals. It exposes the voices that were never truly yours, the ones that told you that your worth depended on productivity, on signs, on constant reassurance. When those voices fade, what remains is authenticity, the real you, the one heaven has been shaping beneath the surface all along. In the stillness, you learn that faith is not a feeling, but a posture. It is standing steady, even when you cannot hear the next command. It is trusting that the one who began the work within you is not finished yet. Faith in silence becomes faith that breathes without proof. And here lies the paradox: when you finally make peace with heaven's silence, you begin to hear again, not with your ears, but with your heart. You recognize that his presence was never gone, it simply changed form. You feel it in the calm that settles your thoughts, in the strength that appears out of nowhere, in the gentle conviction that reminds you, I am still here. So, do not curse the silence. Chosen one, sanctify it. Sit in it without panic. Let it teach you to discern, to wait, to listen. The quiet spaces are not wasted. They are the holy ground where trust becomes transformation. And when heaven finally speaks again, you will realize that the silence was not the absence of his voice, but the preparation of your hearing. You will emerge from it stronger, steadier, wiser, able to carry revelation without needing constant reassurance. Remember this: truth, faith built in noise is fragile, but faith built in silence is unshakable. When God seems quiet, he is not gone. He is crafting a depth of peace within you that words could never teach. Chosen one, as the silence begins to lift, you feel it, something stirring in your spirit, something ancient and powerful. It is the call to speak again, but this time not from fear or confusion, but from victory. You have endured the stillness, passed through the storm, and now heaven releases you to pray not as a beggar, but as a conqueror. This is the prophetic prayer of victory, the declaration that your mind, your emotions, your entire being belong to peace. This is not the same kind of prayer you whispered in desperation. This one carries authority. It does not ask, "Will you help me?" It proclaims, "I already have victory through you." You see, prayer changes posture when revelation arrives. Once, you prayed as one seeking mercy. Now, you pray as one standing in dominion. Heaven wants you to realize that every battle you fought in your thoughts was already won in the unseen realm. The ancient words recorded in the first letter of John, chapter 5, verse 4, "For everyone born of God overcomes the world." This is the victory that has overcome the world, even our faith. Let that verse ignite something in you. Victory is not a reward, it is your inheritance. You are not fighting for peace, you are fighting from peace. Your mind is no longer the enemy's playground, it has become heaven's temple. Every thought of defeat must now bow to the reality of your spiritual birthright. You are an overcomer. This prayer you are learning tonight is not just words, it is alignment with eternal truth. When you declare victory, heaven responds, not because your voice is loud, but because it carries agreement with divine will. God's power moves through the prayers of those who know who they are. Take a moment. Chosen one, inhale deeply. Let your chest rise as you remember that breath itself is prayer. When you exhale, release every fragment of fear still clinging to you. You have nothing left to prove. You are already approved. You are the echo of divine authority. This prophetic prayer of victory begins with remembrance. Say in your heart, I remember who I am. That single statement breaks chains, because amnesia is the enemy's oldest tactic. If he can make you forget your divine identity, he can make you surrender battles you already won. But tonight, memory returns. You remember you are light. You are chosen. You are covered. Now say within, I reclaim my peace. Every time you speak that, the atmosphere shifts. Demonic whispers lose volume. Self-doubt loses footing. And your spirit begins to expand again. Peace is not the absence of conflict. It is the authority to remain unshaken within it. Then, declare this truth. My mind is not a battlefield, it is a sanctuary. See it. Chosen one. See your thoughts as candles burning, not fires raging. The flames are steady now, lighting the corners where darkness once hid. Angels move through the corridors of your mind, guarding every door. The walls that once echoed fear now resound with worship. This is the transformation you've prayed for, not escape, but dominion. You are being given new language tonight, language of victory. No longer I can't, but I will. No longer I'm afraid, but I am anointed. No longer, what if I fail, but God finishes what he begins. These phrases are not affirmations, they are spiritual decrees. Each word you speak is a sword that slices through strongholds. Every declaration is a signal flare in the unseen, alerting heaven that you stand ready to rule your thought life with grace and confidence. Victory prayers are never selfish. When you speak them, you are not only declaring peace for yourself, you are opening portals of hope for others. Every time you pray, let my mind be still. Another heart, somewhere, receives strength to keep fighting. That's how divine connection works. The victory you walk in becomes the light that others follow. Chosen one, your words have weight. You have spent years listening to voices that lied. But now, heaven teaches you to listen to yourself, to the you reborn through grace. When you speak truth, your own spirit recognizes it and aligns. Every thought begins to bow in reverence to divine order. The prophetic prayer of victory ends not with pleading, but with praise. You don't say, Lord, if you will. You say, Lord, you already have. Gratitude becomes your greatest weapon because it tells heaven, I believe it's done. Gratitude accelerates manifestation. It turns waiting into worship and transforms delay into divine timing. Now, as you finish this prayer, mark it with a prophetic sign, a number not of chance, but of completion, of divine perfection multiplied in your life. Comment 888 below. Let it be your declaration that victory is not coming, it is here. Let 888 represent new beginnings built on eternal peace. The Trinity of renewal, body, mind, and spirit fully aligned under heaven's rule. When you type it, do not type as habit. Type it as a vow. My victory is sealed. My mind is free. My spirit is whole. And as you press send, know this: heaven sees it, records it, and responds. The prayer has left your lips, traveled through the unseen, and is already returning as peace unspeakable. You are victorious. Chosen one, you are the fulfillment of faith. Chosen one. Now that victory has been declared, and sealed in your spirit. Heaven invites you into a deeper mystery, the discipline of rest. You have fought well. You have prayed fiercely. You have stood your ground against storms that once shook you to your core. But now, the Spirit whispers, "Be still," not because the battle no longer exists, but because you have learned that victory is not proven through motion, it is sustained through rest. Rest is not idleness. It is the posture of trust. It is the moment when you lay down your sword, not in surrender to defeat, but in surrender to divine control. The strongest soldiers are not the ones who fight endlessly, but the ones who know when to stand down and let heaven take over. You have carried burdens that were never meant to be yours. Chosen one, the discipline of rest teaches you to set them down. As it is written in the book of Exodus, chapter 14, verse 14, "The Lord will fight for you, you need only to be still." There is a sacred simplicity in those words. Stillness is not weakness, it is warfare. It is your way of saying, "God, I trust your timing more than my striving." When you rest, you step out of the illusion of control and step into the flow of divine orchestration. The world may call it inactivity, but heaven calls it intimacy. You have been conditioned to believe that peace comes from doing more, fixing, planning, preparing, but true peace begins where your efforts end. God never asked you to carry the full weight of destiny on your shoulders. He asked you to walk beside him, not ahead of him. When you rest, you let him lead. Think of the ocean, vast and unyielding. When the waves are restless, their power is scattered, crashing against rocks and retreating again. But beneath the surface, in the deep, there is a calm that never wavers. That's what divine rest feels like. On the surface, life may look unpredictable, but within, your spirit remains anchored in unshakable peace. Rest is not the absence of responsibility, it is the presence of rhythm. It's knowing when to move and when to wait, when to speak and when to listen. The Spirit is teaching you to live like the tide, flowing with divine timing instead of forcing the current. Every moment you choose to breathe instead of react, to pause instead of panic, you are exercising heavenly discipline. This kind of rest cannot be achieved through sleep or vacation. It is born from surrender. It happens when you no longer chase what you've already been promised. You begin to live as one who already has access, not one who's still trying to earn it. That is freedom. That is rest. Chosen one. Your mind may try to resist this truth. You've been trained by the world to equate busyness with worth, to find validation in exhaustion. But the kingdom of heaven does not reward burnout, it crowns balance. You cannot hear God clearly while running on spiritual fumes. You need stillness to interpret the signals of the Spirit. The discipline of rest is holy resistance against chaos. It's a declaration that your value is not tied to your productivity. When you rest in faith, you proclaim that your source is not human effort, but divine provision. Even in silence, heaven is moving on your behalf. You may not see it, but the ground is shifting beneath your stillness. Let rest become your rhythm. Create sacred pauses in your day, moments when you step away from the noise and realign your heart. Sit by a window. Breathe deeply. Feel the air move through your lungs. And remember that breath is borrowed from heaven. You do not need to rush. You are safe in divine timing. When rest becomes your discipline, peace becomes your default. You stop chasing clarity and start carrying it. You stop fearing delays because you understand that pauses are part of the plan. You stop asking when and begin saying whenever you will. That's the sound of a soul that trusts completely. Even Jesus rested. He withdrew to quiet places to pray, to breathe, to be refilled. If the Son of God himself needed stillness, how much more do we? The moments when he appeared absent were often when he was preparing power. Your pauses are not wasted. They are where God restores what the battle drained. And when you finally embrace this discipline, your life begins to mirror divine peace. People will look at you and wonder how you stay calm in storms, how you move with such ease when others crumble. They won't understand that it's not because you're stronger, it's because you've learned to lean. Rest. Chosen one. Rest is not retreat, it's revelation. It's the place where faith matures, where victory settles into permanence. Let every breath remind you the battle belongs to God, and you belong to peace. Chosen one, you have learned to fight, to speak, to pray, and to rest. Now heaven opens before you a higher realm, the revelation of light within the mind's night. There was a time when the darkness of confusion felt endless, when your thoughts circled like lost birds with no place to land. But now, something shifts. The darkness no longer terrifies you because you have realized it cannot exist without light nearby. Night itself is proof that dawn still exists. Every soul that walks through transformation must encounter this night, the moment when all outer certainties fade and the only illumination comes from within. It is not punishment, it is purification. God allows the night to teach you how to see differently. In daylight, everything is clear. But in darkness, you must learn to perceive by faith. That is how vision is born. As the prophet wrote in the scroll of Habakkuk, chapter 2, verse 3, "For the revelation awaits an appointed time. It speaks of the end and will not prove false. Though it lingers, wait for it. It will certainly come and will not delay." That verse carries light for the waiting heart, even when it feels delayed. Revelation is not lost, it is maturing. The dark seasons of your mind are not evidence of divine absence. They are the wombs of insight. The longer you stay faithful in the night, the clearer your sight becomes. Heaven hides light in shadows so that only seekers find it. Chosen one, the mind's night is not your enemy. It is your training ground. Every great vision was born in a place of uncertainty. Joseph dreamed while imprisoned. Daniel interpreted mysteries in exile. John saw revelation while isolated on an island. Solitude and struggle sharpen spiritual sight. The absence of noise becomes the canvas upon which heaven paints. You may feel that your clarity comes and goes, like the moon waxing and waning. Bright one night, faint the next. But even when you cannot see it, the moon still reflects the sun. In the same way, your spirit reflects divine truth even in your dimmest moments. The light within you never disappears. It only changes intensity depending on your alignment. When your heart turns toward God, your light brightens. When fear distracts you, it dims but it never dies. In the mind's night, heaven teaches you a gentler kind of strength, the strength to see beauty where others see nothing, to hear whispers where others hear silence. You begin to recognize the voice of God in unexpected places, in the pause between breaths, in the pattern of your thoughts, in the ache that somehow feels holy. Darkness, when surrendered, becomes teacher. It teaches patience. empathy, and humility. It strips away illusion and exposes the core of faith trust without evidence. It invites you to believe that even unseen light is still real. Faith, after all, is not sight, it is the courage to walk before dawn. Chosen one, there are treasures hidden in your darkest thoughts, waiting to be discovered. The questions that haunted you now become keys, unlocking new understanding. The pain that once blinded you becomes the lens through which you see with compassion. You learn that revelation does not always come as thunder. Sometimes it comes as a quiet assurance that everything is unfolding exactly as it should. Imagine standing in a field at midnight. The world is still. The stars scattered like promises across the sky. The darkness around you feels vast. But the longer you remain, the more details emerge: the silhouette of trees, the texture of the earth beneath your feet, the glimmer of dew catching faint starlight. Nothing changed but your perception. That is what happens when light enters the mind's night, not external brightness, but internal awareness. When your inner sight opens, worry loses its grip. You stop asking why and start asking what now. You realize that your steps are guided even when you cannot see the path ahead. The lamp of revelation shines just enough to show the next step, not the whole journey, and that is grace. Too much light would blind you. Just enough teaches you to trust. The mind's night is also the birthplace of creativity. When you stop fearing darkness, imagination awakens. Heaven whispers ideas, songs, solutions, and visions into those who dwell in stillness. That's why revelation feels most alive when the world sleeps. It is in those late hours, when distractions fade, that heaven finds your undivided attention. Chosen one, your light is not small. It was never meant to compete with the sun. It was designed to glow in places the sun cannot reach. You are the gentle flame that warms souls still trapped in shadow. Your peace, your clarity, your quiet strength, these are lanterns for others walking their own nights. You have become what you once sought, a light bearer born from the dark. When dawn comes, and it will, you will look back on the night not with resentment, but reverence. You will thank it for shaping your vision, for teaching you to see with the eyes of the heart. For in that darkness, heaven rewrote your definition of light. Chosen one, the light has returned, and you now stand on sacred ground, the threshold of freedom. You have fought the unseen battles, endured the nights, and waited in silence. And now, the strongholds in your mind, the invisible walls that once defined your limits, begin to tremble. This is the moment heaven promised the falling of the strongholds. For years, these mental fortresses have whispered lies. They told you that you'd never be free, that your peace was temporary, that your worth depended on what others thought. But heaven has issued a decree: those walls can no longer stand. You are no longer a prisoner of thought, you are a builder of truth. The same mind that once enslaved you will now empower you. The Spirit spoke through the prophet Jeremiah, chapter 1, verse 10. Today I appoint you over nations and kingdoms, to uproot and tear down, to destroy and overthrow, to build and to plant. That is your calling. Chosen one, not just to escape strongholds, but to dismantle them, to uproot what fear planted, to tear down what shame constructed, and to rebuild your inner world with heaven's blueprint. You are not standing in ruins, You are standing in fertile ground, ready for new foundations. These strongholds didn't form overnight. They were built slowly, word by word, wound by wound. Every lie you believed became a brick. Every unhealed memory became mortar. But your obedience, your faith, your willingness to stay through the refining fire, they have become divine wrecking balls. The structures of falsehood cannot withstand the pressure of truth. As the walls fall, dust rises. It might look messy, but don't mistake the dust for defeat. Dust is what remains before creation begins again. Remember, the very first man was formed from dust. God loves beginnings that come from brokenness. Now, as you stand amid the falling debris, take a deep breath. This air is different. It's lighter, freer, filled with promise. The space that once held captivity now holds potential. The mental noise that once suffocated you now echoes with possibility. You can think clearly, dream boldly, believe deeply again. But the fall of strongholds isn't just for your healing, it's for the freedom of others. The way you've walked through darkness has carved a path for those still trapped in it. There are others fighting their own invisible wars, looking for proof that deliverance is real. And you, chosen one, have become that proof. Your peace preaches louder than any sermon. That's why what you do next matters. When you like, share, or subscribe, you are not just supporting a message, you are releasing a signal flare into the digital sky. Somewhere, someone scrolling through shadows will see that light and realize they are not alone. When you donate, you are not giving money to a screen, you are planting seeds into hearts across nations. Every gift keeps the fire burning, words traveling where your feet cannot go, comfort reaching souls you may never meet. Think of it this way, a lighthouse doesn't light itself for applause, it shines for the ships lost at sea. This message, this movement, is that lighthouse. Your act of support, whether a click, a share, or a gift, is the oil that keeps its flame alive. You are helping light a coast of safety in a world that feels endlessly stormy. Your faith fuels more than algorithms, it fuels transformation. Every story that finds hope here, every message that pierces despair, exists because someone before you chose to keep the flame alive. You have that same power now to sustain, to spread, to shine. And if these words have met you in your moment of breakthrough, if they have steadied your mind and breathed courage back into your lungs, then take a moment to respond from the heart. Comment below. Share what fell, what healed, what rebuilt. Your story might be the bridge someone else walks across. Testimonies are not about perfection, they are about proof that grace still works. Chosen one, your strongholds are falling, but you remain standing. You are not collapsing with them, you are rising from them. The sound you hear is not destruction, it is deliverance. Every lie that once confined you is breaking into fragments, and those fragments will soon become stones of remembrance. You will build altars out of what once buried you. You will tell your story not as tragedy but as triumph. You will look at the ruins and say, "Here lies the end of fear and the beginning of faith." And your light will grow brighter. Not because everything is easy now, but because you have become the living testimony that peace is possible. Chosen one, when the dust settles and the echo of falling strongholds fades into stillness, a new feeling begins to rise within you, a quiet majesty, a calm strength, It is not pride, and it is not boastfulness, it is the recognition of identity. You stand now as one who has walked through the mind's battlefield and emerged crowned with clarity. This is the stage where transformation becomes embodiment. What was once revelation is now reality. The crown you wear is not visible to the world, yet heaven sees it shining. It is the crown of wisdom forged in the fires of confusion, the crown of peace shaped by storms. You did not earn it through perfection, you received it through perseverance. Every tear polished it, every prayer engraved it. And now, as it rests upon your spiritual brow, the world will sense it before they see it. As was spoken in the book of Revelation, chapter 3, verse 11, I am coming soon. Hold on to what you have, so no one takes your crown. That is your charge, hold on to what you have. The crown upon your spirit is not fragile, yet it must be guarded. Distraction seeks to steal it. Pride seeks to tarnish it, and doubt seeks to loosen its hold. But you, chosen one, have learned endurance. You have become steady in storms and gentle in power. This crown does not rest on your head because of titles or achievements. It rests there because heaven has recognized your endurance. You are not the same soul that first stepped into this journey. The trembling seeker has become the peaceful sentinel. Your silence has become your strength. Your stillness has become your song. The same mind that once fractured under pressure now moves like water, flexible, reflective, unstoppable. Where once chaos screamed, now calm reigns. To be crowned with clarity is to live with sight unclouded by fear. You have learned that light does not remove shadow, it reveals it. Every struggle that once blurred your vision has now become a lens through which you see more deeply. You walk through this world differently, not above others, but beyond the noise that once ruled you. Clarity humbles you. It makes you tender where you were once defensive, perceptive where you were once reactive. You see patterns in pain, purpose in delay, poetry in what used to feel like silence. You no longer rush to escape discomfort because you recognize it as divine conversation. Every pause now has meaning, every setback holds strategy. Chosen one, heaven's process has not wasted a single moment. Every season, the confusion, the collapse, the renewal has shaped the architecture of your peace. You are not defined by what broke you, but by what rebuilt you. The clarity you now carry was not taught in books, it was etched into your being through every night you refused to give up. You have become transparent to truth. When people look into your eyes, they will see steadiness. They will see that your calm is not the absence of trouble, it is the evidence of transformation. You have learned that clarity is not about knowing everything, it is about trusting even when you do not. But the crown also comes with responsibility. You must guard your mind as you would guard a flame on a windy hill. Protect your peace from gossip, from comparison, from noise disguised as knowledge. You have labored too long to let distraction dethrone you. To be crowned with clarity means to walk with precision of heart. You no longer waste words or energy on what does not bear fruit. You discern which battles are worth your voice and which are simply echoes from the past. This wisdom makes you unshakable, not hard. You are soft enough to feel, but strong enough not to fall apart. Imagine a mountain after a storm, its air crisp, its rivers clean, its peaks glistening beneath a newborn sun. That is your mind now. Every drop of rain, every strike of lightning has left it stronger. more radiant. You no longer fear the storm because you have become one with its purpose. The crown upon your spirit is not made of gold or jewels. It is woven from revelation, endurance, and grace. It shines brighter than metal because it carries light that no flame can burn out. It is the mark of those who have seen darkness and still chosen light. Chosen one, walk with quiet assurance. You are not here to prove yourself. You are here to reflect heaven's peace. Speak truth gently. Love without condition. Rest without fear. You are crowned not for comfort but for calling. And this crown will not fade, because it is forged in the eternal fire of faith. Chosen one, the journey has brought you full circle. You have faced the battlefield of your thoughts, the wilderness of waiting, the silence of heaven, and the dawn of clarity. And now, at the summit of transformation, you stand in peace, a peace that no longer depends on circumstances, but flows from the eternal within you. What began as survival has become serenity. This is not the end of your story. It is the unveiling of your eternal mindset. You see now that all along, heaven was not merely changing your situation, it was changing your sight. The war in your mind was never meant to destroy you. It was meant to awaken you. Each thought you brought captive, each lie you confronted, each fear you starved, these were sacred steps into divine maturity. You were never losing your mind, you were learning to master it. As written in the book of Colossians, chapter 3, verse 2, set your minds on things above, not on earthly things. That is the key to your continued peace. The eternal mindset looks upward, not outward. It is not swayed by news, noise, or nostalgia. It does not measure worth by wealth or time by urgency. The eternal mind rests in the rhythm of heaven, where purpose replaces pressure and presence outweighs performance. You, chosen one, have entered that rhythm. The eternal mindset is the awareness that everything seen is temporary, but what is unseen is infinite. You begin to live not from reaction, but from revelation. The worries that once consumed you now seem small compared to the vastness of divine order. You no longer ask, "Why is this happening to me?" but instead, "What is heaven shaping in me through this?" The shift from fear to faith, from hurry to harmony, from anxiety to alignment that is eternity working through time. In this awareness, your thoughts no longer fight one another. They flow together like rivers returning to the same ocean. The mind, once torn between past and future, now rests fully in the present, the only place where eternity touches earth. You realize that God does not meet you in tomorrow or yesterday. He meets you now. Every breath becomes communion. Every moment, sacred. The eternal mindset does not escape reality. It transforms it. It teaches you to see every situation through the eyes of destiny. You no longer judge moments as good or bad. You simply recognize them as necessary. What once frustrated you now instructs you. What once hurt you now humbles you. Everything becomes part of the great tapestry of grace, woven perfectly, even when your human eyes cannot see the pattern. To walk with an eternal mind is to live like a tree planted by rivers of peace, deeply rooted, quietly growing, unbothered by storms. You draw from a source that never runs dry. While others strive for control, you surrender to flow. While others panic at uncertainty, you rest in providence. You have become a living example of heaven's serenity expressed on earth. This is what true freedom feels like. not loud triumph, but quiet confidence. You no longer fear losing things because you have learned that nothing truly yours can be taken. You no longer cling to what changes, for your anchor is in what cannot. You carry eternity in your awareness. You move through time with grace. Chosen one. This is what the battle was always about. The enemy never wanted your possessions, he wanted your perspective. He wanted to keep your eyes fixed on the temporary so that you would forget the eternal. But now, your vision is restored. You see not just what is, but what is becoming. You recognize yourself as both human and holy, finite and filled with infinity. To live with an eternal mindset is to see heaven's fingerprints everywhere, in laughter, in loss, in the stillness between both. You begin to notice that everything belongs: the joy, the sorrow, the waiting, the revelation. All of it is part of your refinement, your return to wholeness. And in this awareness, compassion deepens. You stop judging others for where they are because you remember where you've been. You recognize that every wandering soul is just a traveler learning to see. The eternal mind no longer divides people into categories of good and bad. It simply loves them as fragments of the same divine breath. This way of seeing frees you. You no longer need to prove your worth or defend your peace. You walk through life as a mirror reflecting heaven's calm. Your words become slower, your reactions softer, your thoughts lighter. You move through the world with the quiet assurance of one who knows everything is working together for good, even what doesn't feel like it. Chosen one. This peace is not fragile, it is eternal. It cannot be shaken by loss or delay because it is rooted in something beyond time. You have become the stillness in the storm, the light in the dim room, the melody in the silence. You carry eternity in your consciousness now, and wherever you go, heaven goes with you. So walk gently through this world. Let every step echo with awareness. Let every thought align with truth. You are not waiting for eternity. It has already begun within you. You are the intersection of heaven and earth, the embodiment of divine calm in a restless age. You are the eternal chosen one, unshaken, unhurried, unbound, chosen one. If these words have reached you, then you know this truth deep in your soul. Your journey through the battlefield of the mind was never just about you. It was about awakening the light that the world desperately needs. You have walked through fear and come out radiant. You have faced silence and discovered serenity. You have tasted confusion and turned it into wisdom. Now, you stand not as a survivor, but as a messenger of peace. Let this be your reminder: your voice matters. Every time you share truth, you scatter seeds of light into dark places. Somewhere, someone scrolling through their storm is waiting for a message like this, waiting for the sign that peace is still possible. When you share, you shine that signal. When you like, you lift the message higher so another lost heart can find it. When you comment, you leave a trace of faith for others to follow. So take a moment, right here, right now. Reflect on what part of this journey stirred your heart the most. Was it the victory, the silence, the clarity? Write it in the comments below. Your words could be the bridge someone else needs to cross their own battle. And if this message has steadied your spirit, subscribe and stay connected to this flow of divine truth. Every new word, every new reflection, every new reminder that you are chosen It all builds a community of light bearers who refuse to let the world grow cold. Chosen one, thank you for walking this path with faith, for letting heaven write through your tears and triumphs. Keep shining, keep growing, keep carrying peace like a crown. You are seen, you are loved, you are chosen forever.